makes you live the way you wish to live. But revenge cancels the lines between poverty and riches.
It's either you're seeing something progressive, or I'll just tell your wife that I'm carrying your child.
Where is my father?
Now that he's coming closer to the community, my
papi go figure your own plans, so I go figure my own.
I decree today that the power of God that is coming upon your life, no enemy will touch you and go free.
Experience the power. Take dominion.
Say the name of Jesus. I prophesy. Doors of favor.
Action Chapel's Dominion Hour. Now, live, this and every Thursday on Dominion TV.
And from today, you will be stronger than any enemy.
Reverend Bafo Bonnie to join us. Well, let me start off with you. I don't know how safe you are. We'll talk about the floods, but I hope your home was not flooded in about 30 seconds. I just wanted to touch base with you.
No, not really. There was no flood in my house.
Right. Okay. Nice. Anyways, before we get on to the issues making headlines, especially, there's this particular scene, and it's become part of our major talking points on social media, where there's still, understand, ban on drumming and noise making, but some churches, especially when they don't even have soundproof auditorium, went ahead to do their things, and of course it caused the disaffection. It caught the disaffection of some traditional leaders who went there to tackle them. Is 1 month too much to just collaborate and collaborate with the traditional authorities, especially when it does not take your faith away from you, or you think that once we kowtow to whatever it is that they want us to do, it means that the devil has won and taken victory over us?
Well, is as much as the Bible admonishes us to be at peace with each other, we Christians have to understand that Jesus made a statement: say, give to Caesar, what to God. We are in a community that these are traditional rulers that also have ways by which they do. As much as we have freedom of worship, we should be able to tolerate and live at peace with whoever we stay with. That is my thought. But, well, it's not the clapping, it's not the noise that brings God's presence down. That is the notion. People have the understanding that, when I go to church and I'm able to hear the instrument make that loud sounds, it brings some euphoria of excitement. But all the same, looking at the days of Pentecost, there wasn't any drum over there, but the Holy Ghost descended and there was a great outpouring of the Spirit. So irrespective of the time and seasons we are all used to the instrument and other thing, I think just have to collaborate with whatever is happening, and as that God is near to us. It's not instrument that brings the presence of God. It is your intimacy with God that brings of these things. As much as this is also, there is one that I also observe. Anytime there are issues like this, some of the traditional rulers also use that an opportunity to abuse and to harass churches. I've been in church that I've seen severally that you see these tax folks coming around, you don't even know who they are, and they just show up from nowhere trying to carry instruments and mics, and these things are uncalled for. I think this Saturday we're having somewhere around Soto. My senior pastor lost his wife, and we're gathering. Just all of a sudden, a tax force just appeared from nowhere. Said they are from the traditional council. They were even saying that we should even mount out canopies, and it got to a whole sort of dialogue. This is some of the abuses that happen. So when this ban comes around, I think the traditional leaders shouldn't just sit down. Some of the youth also take advantage of this to abuse and to do all sort of things that are uncalled for. So there should be regulations, because what happened to us just this Saturday, if we were to have boys that were not reasonable, it would have resulted to all things, because they were arguing that even there shouldn't be anything. I was asking, so churches shouldn't say. So apart from all that other things, the corporate, to me, I think that there should be understanding. People shouldn't abuse some of these regulations. So
I see. Very, very, very instructive. Thank you. Thank you very much. So there must be a fine line drawn in between these things, and so we can have we can live peaceably. Let's look at our flooding situations. Reverend Anaya Bafoboni is on.
Yeah, I've joined you online now.
Oh, right. Thank you very much.
I love your suit. You are looking like the deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana.
In Jesus' name, amen.
And I like Reverend CBS outfit too. You guys are looking sharp. What a glorious morning.
Month no end yet. There's no pay, but I mean, we have to.
I think it should be raining more often. Look at when it rains, your handsomeness comes out.
It's true. It's true. I just realized it myself. Anyways, you're better today. I can see as well.
Yeah, I think the cough is greatly reduced, so I'm in my element.
Absolutely. Oh no, not elements, but I just see. I mean, those times. I mean, last week, even some few words you would cough, but we thank God for your life.
Yeah, but you are a diplomat. You are saying it diplomatically. I'll take you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
I hear you.
Honorable Kudeta.
Absolutely. But I mean, do you want to share thoughts with us on the issue
on the church?
Yes, the church.
It's a two-way street. I mean, I didn't hear the full contribution of Reverend Xavier, but I think it's a two-way street. First and foremost, we need to understand that in every country, there are indigenous people there. And the indigenous people, we will say, are the owners of the land. They have their traditions and their customs. And if by law, I mean, they are recognized, because Ghana is one of the few countries that recognizes traditional authority and traditional law. That's the reason why a monarch like Asante can distool you when you go to court and it will be upheld. So if these things are there, then we must understand that they come with their own ramifications. So if you have been served notice or there's been a public announcement that there should be a ban on noise making and all these type of things, I think that, like Reverend Xavier said, if there is a need for there to be a breach, the police can be reached out to, and the traditional authorities can be reached out to, for there to be some sort of compromise. But to blatantly have service and open up all your speakers as though you live on an island, you're only opening up yourself for unnecessary trouble. Because remember, the scriptures tells us, I think in Romans 13, that we must subject ourselves to the authorities of the land. So far as the land recognizes traditional authority as part of the established authority, and the Bible says those people are put there by God. You understand? So they may not be representatives of God, but they are there by God's mission, and we must do what it takes to be able to comply. Because I know some of these churches, I mean, when they find themselves in Europe and other places where there is no ban, but they enforce laws very strictly on decibel levels and what noise levels you can exceed, they comply. They actually even do internal acoustics to ensure that they don't do that, because the council will come after you and you pay through your nose. So let's comply. And then also, this is my advice to the traditional authorities: do not go and enforce these things without the police, because anything could have happened. I mean, look, I know churches that in a single service, the number of guns present in the service is as much as 10% attendance. You won't believe it. Because the people themselves who are in the church have licensed guns to protect themselves. And the church itself also has authority figures within the place that run some of these licensed guns because of snatching of offertory and trying to hijack church services. They have a history, so they are also armed to the teeth in a certain way. Can you imagine that worst case scenario? There was an engagement, because I didn't see any of those guys in the video coming with even as much as a club or a broomstick. You would have put yourself in harm's way for no reason. You are enforcing an edict. And those that have been allowed by law to enforce such edicts are the police, are the Ghana Police Service. They have the law backing them to do that. So even if the task force is going to go along, the task force duty is to identify those in breach and then alert the police, not to go there and go and cause mayhem. Because when you go there, you are not backed by law in terms of effecting the kind of arrest and sanity that you want to establish. They are not backed by law to do that. They can go with the police to ensure that, but to go on your own, I mean, like the word says, then you are on your own.
Right.
Because you never know. You never know. You may enter there. That will be the day where somebody with a mental health challenge has come to visit the church and you are gonna. Or can you imagine in the service? Let's take something like, some of these American spy agents and whatever, they come in plain clothes. Can you imagine an important person in, let's say, the American embassy or the Danish embassy is visiting the church and his security is around and they are in plain clothes? I mean, they can easily engage if they feel that their ambassador or consular is in danger. And before you know, you have brought an international chaos on us because now a foreigner needed to be evacuated and protected and fire has been exchanged. So I think that the enforcers must add common sense. Unfortunately, I think the name is ironic, because common sense never seems to be common anyway.
Anyways, well, it's now time, I guess, to make sure that at some point, this is just my thoughts. I've said this over and over again, that once the churches are not paying taxes, we can ask them to build soundproof auditorium to save us at least. Because if I just went to myself...
But that's a long way to go, because it will take people like Papa Dems and established churches to do that. Most of those who are meeting in shacks and classrooms and things, if you say soundproof, right, that means that you have to close them down until that requirement is met. So I think that it should be enforced first and foremost once you have a permanent building. And then also you should look at the area. Listen, Koku, do you know where most of these problems are coming from?
No.
I am an architect. I can tell you this from a professional position, okay? Most of our churches are not zoned for churches. In fact, when areas are being zoned, nobody reserves land for church. We even don't reserve land for refuse disposal and recycling. So anytime these things have to live with us within our residential communities, there would always be an infraction and a problem. You see, because most lands, when you look on the land title, you see that it's zoned as a residential area. So sometimes the churches have to apply for it to be rezoned, and then the issues happen. Because when this rezone is being done, they don't even engage the community to ensure that they've all come to a consensus and they respect that a church should be there. These are conditionalities. Don't make noise beyond this level, and then we reach a compromise. So in the end, people just bulldoze their way, and it can be very problematic. Can you imagine that you are a retiree in your 70s? You struggle so much to sleep. And then you have a church being pastored by someone like me that is trying to chase Satan out of town. And we lift up prayer. As we, you lose sleep, definitely. So I think that we really need to look at it's a very complex thing, from the planning level to implementation, enforcement, and all that ought to be looked at even beyond the ban. Because the point you raise is very valid. Most of our churches are not located in the best of places at all.
True. Anyway, so we'll see how that goes. Let's touch on the second story. Of course, that could make it for the day. The issue of flooding, and almost 3-hour downpour has once again led to severe flooding across several parts of Accra, Weja, Kaneshi, Adabraka, parts of Tema, Adentan, Dodowa. Residents in affected areas were advised to stay indoors and even avoid wading through floodwaters due to potential contamination and the risk of waterborne diseases. Reverend Xavier, once again, our problems have been exposed. I mean, they've shown it to us The pink sheets are all over the place. You can see the evidence is clear. Government is being blamed, and everywhere, everyone else is a victim, and government is the perpetrator. Talk to me about it. Your thoughts on this?
It's sad because some of these issues have happened over the years. I think in the early 90s, somewhere around Newtown there. And it's amazing anytime it flies, you see television and things flying, and you see young people running to pick some of things. And this have happened over decades now. And as a country, I don't know, the approach that we have been doing all these years, I don't think it has yielded any significant result. Looking at what happened just yesterday with 3 hours of rainfall. If you look at sometimes attributing the issues of building in railway lines, it's true that some people have disregarded those and they are built at places that are unauthorized. It's becoming a cult of us disposing refuge around. That is some of the contributing factors to why we are having a lot of floods around. And I think as a nation and as individuals should look at it holistically to see how we can be able to solve or alleviate some of things. How we easily throw out rubbish around. You just go to town, you see people just dumping things around. All the contributing factors. And it's because it rains and you're going to be coming from somewhere or Kasuma. You not just go and it's a very thing. I think that we should look at as a nation in a very holistic way so that some of these things can stop us. It's been years. Anytime it rains, it's either place has flooded or something has happened. I think the AMA and the necessary authorities should take immediate action to alleviate, because it's not just the flooding. Anytime things like this come around, you hear cases of cholera. There are a lot of spreading of diseases around. So please, these things should be tackled in a very constructive way.
I see. We speak all the big English. We dress the way we dress, behave the way we behave as intellectuals until the rains come. Then you see the kind of nation we are. You're an architect, of course. You're into building, but of course, I'm sure you know a lot about what's happening, especially in the capital, Accra. To be frank with you, growing up as a child in the Volta region, in Ho, for instance, the most peaceful, well-planned town or city, if you like, in the whole Ghana. Today, there are flooding cases as well. What has happened? Planning, I guess.
Yeah, like I always say, our issues are very complex. Sometimes it's a failure to plan, sometimes the failure to enforce the law. And then also there are other factors like as the community growing to becoming more cosmopolitan. That's why you said that in the more rural areas, these things are less likely to happen. Now, let's look at the planning thing. When we have plans, they are on paper, and we are looking at areas that are above sea level, areas that are below sea level. When areas are below sea level, naturally they become collection points, because at that point it's not going to drain into the sea because it is below the sea level. So in terms of gradient, you are rather going to have a backlash kind of situation. So what we do is that those areas below sea level, we create what they call receptacle points, right? So for example, one such receptacle point is where we have Villaggio today.
Oh, is it?
The so-called Hotel Kufo, right? So there are such receptacle points. Some are in Achimota. They are dotted around the city where water coming in from the mountainous areas, the Aburi area, the upper sections of Adenta coming in, all wash down to these receptacle points. And then they are collected in water pools, and then they naturally drain and go down into the crust of the earth. So it doesn't come all the way down into the city center. Now, what have we done?
So hold your thoughts there. Forgive me. So I saw a text today, a Facebook post about the Hotel Kufo. I thought it was a lie that it was in waterways, and so I want you to explain that receptacle. So what it means is that the whole of the area does not have to have a building where the whole hotel could fall.
At all. The same thing with the Ramsar sites that we see in the Teshi Sakumono area.
Right.
You understand? So all those things are collection points that allows the water to sit. They are like big bowls, if you want to, big water reservoirs that collect the running water that come from the high mountainous lands into those places, because any point beyond is below the sea level. Therefore, it will not travel upwards into the sea and get disposed of. For remember, all waters washing in, whether they are rivers, lakes, whatever, they are washing into the bigger collection point of the sea, as it were. That is why, if you realize, anytime the rain is very heavy on the mountains, and it is also raining down within the valley where most of us live in, the below sea level, the issue of flooding becomes extremely pronounced, because the water is coming from the mountain top. The places where they must collect are filled. So it is spilling and forcing its way into the city center. And that city center itself also is receiving its own downpour. Then there's a deluge. And then it starts to now find its own level, and it starts to push into the communities. Now, when you also come to the areas that are below the sea level, oftentimes the road infrastructure is done without the drains. So again, water is collecting. There is nowhere to pass it to enter into homes. And then also when they are the drains are heavily silted, because they are not covered drains. Oftentimes they are exposed. So the sand, the dust within our communities and all that are washing into the drains and filling it up. So let's say if a drain could take, 1,000 liters per minute, it is silted to about half. Therefore, it's doing half or less than half of its capacity. Therefore, once the water is coming with that same torrential flow and volume, it starts to spill out of the drain and then into the communities. So that is yet another challenge. There are not enough drains. The drains are silted. And then lastly, our behavior as a people. Some people have this ancient culture we had in our childhood. Oh, Charlie, instead of throwing the ball away or going to burn it, now it is raining. Let's put it in the drain. The drain will carry it away. You are not asking yourself, the drain is carrying it away to where? And if everybody is filling it with their waste garbage because the rains have set in, you can imagine how much of the volume of the drain is going to be reduced by virtue of the garbage that has now filled it. So sometimes all of these garbage we put in there, the rainwater subside and they see like it has done today. And then because there isn't much pressure carrying the garbage along, they get stuck within the drains. Then they all cause a blockage. Then that one also has a problem. And then let me come to the cosmopolitan issue I'm talking about. Now, in a place where you are talking, maybe a small community in Volta region, right? Or let's say in Ashanti region or somewhere in the north, everybody knows everyone. We live with that collective mind that it's if one thing for us is one thing done against one person is against all of us. So we have that collective communal mindset. People, therefore, are more communally responsible. But in a cosmopolitan setting where all of us are visitors, everybody comes from somewhere, everybody sees that this is not my dwelling place. I'm just passing through. So we have a very nonchalant and non-patriotic attitude towards our community. People throw things indiscriminately anywhere. They poop anywhere. We put our garbage into things anywhere because we just feel, even those who put their garbage in the drain, their mindset is that even if the rain does not carry it to a certain destination, it will wash away from my community. It is going to the community downhill. So that selfish, self-centered human nature makes it very difficult to manage some of these things. So in a less cosmopolitan and homogeneous setting, people find it easier to send around, even when you want to do cleanup. It's very easy to just get a gong beat or somebody go with a PA system mounted on a car and announce a community, we are meeting this Saturday to clean up. But go check somewhere like Accra Metropolis or somewhere like Weeby where I live, where even such an announcement is being done, and somebody doesn't care, he's opening the shop. Somebody doesn't care, he set up his watch joint, he's selling. I remember there were some Saturdays where we actually saw these same task force guys, this time from the assembly, actually beating up people and locking up their shops. Like, how can you be so uncaring? Even the worst part of the drainage is in front of your shop, and yet you will not join to scoop out this dirt for just 2-3 hours in the morning, after which maybe after 12 noon, every shop is allowed to open. How much loss are you going to make? Because everybody in the community knows that shops are being closed anyway, so they're not even coming to patronize your business for you to say you are losing business, and it can get very murky in cosmopolitan settings. So I think that it's not so much about planning. I mean, I have done a lot of work having to meet with planners, because when you are trying to zone up an area and all that, you go to the planning office to see if the land is properly acquired, blah, blah. When you go there, you see the plans. The plans are there. The zoning is there. The drainage plans have been done. In a dental area, there are dams even in those places for some of these things. But many people don't know that there's even a dam in Adenta municipality, for example. Because these things exist, but a problem with us is enforcement. The political will is not there. When people start to bully us more, if you break down a building, we vote you out of power, we do this. So the politician's problem is only one, to win power. And the second problem he has is to maintain power. So the people always come last. The needs of the people never ever show up. And I think that if all the parties, especially these two major political parties, can decide that irrespective of who is in power, when it comes to X, Y, Z issues, education, drainage, this, that, we are not going to compromise. We'll sing from the same hymn book. I think the Ghanaian will comply, because that same Ghanaian, when he finds himself in Hungary, he finds himself in Romania, in Canada, in the United States, he complies with the laws. Why? Because he knows that whether Republican or Democrat, the whip will be cracked. And that is what we must start to do.
Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Anyways, we'll see about that. There's a lot of things on my mind. Some of them cannot be shared on television. It's against
if you don't mind, you remember the time Oboche Bilante was the minister for beautification of the capital city,
right?
You remember they started doing some demolition. I think Ajiri Blanson also was doing some great work getting people off the streets,
right?
When the issue came up about the Hotel Kufuor area being in the waterway and some of the places within the airport enclave, what happened? His work ended and that ministry was closed down and he was never reappointed, if you remember very well.
Yeah.
You see, yeah, because now the bourgeois have fallen foul. If they fall foul of the law, then now we have animal farm. Some animals are more animal than others, you know? So that's it.
I'm here thinking if he, the president who owns, the former president who owns that place, did not know about that place being a receptacle before building, but some of these...
No, it is not his house. It's not the former president's house.
No, I'm talking about the hotel.
The hotel and the Villaggio enclave.
Yes.
If you watch very carefully, if you remember, before that place was developed, if you remember, when you were on the N1, you realized that place dipped very sharply. It was like a ravine.
Yeah.
The edge of it was like a cliff. It dipped very sharply. And then it was like a big reservation line all the way along almost to the Fiesta Royal stretch. Well, it was like a big gully. That was why it was reserved. Then the road that passed President Kufuor's house was there into airport residential area. So that development was there. Then from the Fiesta Royal traffic light all the way down to where the flyover is. If you watch very carefully, where you duck down around into Hotel Kufuor, you know, that reservation. So it's part of it, you see, and it's not only that place. There are different reservations, like the Ramsar site you see at Nungwa. If you watch recently, some people were going to develop. We discussed it in the studio.
Yes.
So what they do, they fill and stabilize the ground, and we put a building on it. Then now people come and buy the rest and keep putting building on it. Then the water has to find its level. Yesterday I got stuck. I want to visit my sister-in-law. It took the grace of God. An angel, let me call him an angel, appeared out of nowhere in the heavy rain and got me out of the mud and said, pass here. That's how I got to my house.
Wow.
Totally wet, shoes wet, everything wet. My car engine sound even changed for a while because I think it was sneezing from the inundation of the water.
Wow. Let's talk about spare parts, because clearly a lot of people are going to have to buy spare parts within this. What I've seen within this few hours, especially from yesterday till this morning. But the spare part dealers have now been instructed to slash prices to reflect city gains. Vehicle owners and transport operators are likely to see a reduction in the prices of spare parts in the coming days, as the Abusokai Spare Part Dealers Association at Greater Accra has instructed members to slash prices. The association instructed its dealers to take this action following significant gains by the CD in relation to other major international currencies, especially the dollar. This action is likely to bring relief to consumers, with the expectation of a reduction in transport fares as a majority of parameters that determine the cost of goods and services continue to decline. Reverend Xavier, for me, I shared my thoughts earlier. The fact that this is the display of sheer wickedness, if all parameters that determine the prices that you always increase have also, shown that you have to decrease it, and you still have kept it waiting for an instruction. For me, sheer wickedness, and it only tells us who we are as a country, far away before you even talk about the regulation. It is the greed of business owners and people who sell, who want to make profit 3 times what they might even want to do on a normal day. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, because as much as we all expect prices of things to come down, yeah, it's an exciting news that the dollar is coming down, and we all expect that there should be a reflection of the reduction in cost of goods. But there is a problem at stake, because this, for me, I'm expecting that this will take a phase about 2 to 3 months to see a gradual significant change in the prices of goods. Because most of these traders, if we should be fair to them, some of them bought these things at a very high cost then. So for the instruction, I think is a good one, but it will take a gradual time for us to really see a good change in the price of items. Because what they are saying, for instance, if you go to Abosokai, most of them will tell you that, no, we bought these goods for about 6 months now, and if I happen to buy a good at the time that the dollar was around 16 or whatever, and now that is 13, and you're asking me to reduce the price, it will probably cost you a loss. So we should, in a way, understand them. But to me, there should be a change in the prices, because as much as they are old stuffs, people are still buying new things, and they are buying it at a lesser cost. And there should be a reflection in whatever the price of goods are.
I see. Finally, Aaron and I are about for money.
Yeah, the truth is that, you see, that's one of the challenges when you operate a free market economy like what we have. Yeah, because remember back in the Rollins day where the budget was read, they would listen for the price of beer, cigarettes, Rothmans, Palmer, Marlboro, Embassy, 555, and all that. But now we have a free market economy. So even the word instructor, I don't know whether that is correct, because you can only urge them. If a person refuses to do so, there is no law that bars them. And I agree with your issue of corporate greed. Sometimes people want to cash in at the season. But I've already said, and I agree with Reverend Xavier, it will take a bit of time for the market to respond. I believe that what will make the market respond immediately is that the Bank of Ghana and the finance minister must issue or do a joint press statement to explain in very clear terms to the Ghanaian public, especially the business community, and what is causing the cedi to gain strength, and at what point the bank would try to benchmark it and stabilize it. You see, because it has a two-way effect. This strengthening of the cedi against the dollar has a two-way effect, because the negative effect it is having is that now it's going to encourage imports, and encouraging imports means that local production is going to go down. The consequent effect is the 24-hour economy will not take off, because when it is more attractive and cheaper for me to import things because I'm getting good returns, I don't see why I want to do local production. You understand? So it's very, very, very important. Again, also, the reverse is true for our exporters. Those who are locally producing and exporting are now going to be looking for a lot more money to be able to push their things out there, because when you sell your stuff, because of the weakening of the dollar, you are not going to be making the same margins that you anticipated earlier on when the dollar was stronger. So there's a negative impact that it has on us. So the Bank of Ghana and the governor should have a joint press statement and show us ABCD reasons is why the dollar is losing strength against the cedi. And we are looking at its losing strength anywhere between maybe 11 and 12 cedis. We are going to hold it at that point. Then it will help the business community to be able to plan, knowing that from now to X period of time, we are looking at a 4. It will come to this. We can benchmark and then start to rewire the various budgets and plans that have been made. But ultimately, it's going to affect local production if we don't arrest this tide and have a more stable system. Because I am looking at the 24-hour economy thing. If we are really trying to generate jobs, it must be driven by demand. And if the demand is shifting to the import side, then we are rather putting jobs in another person's country, putting money in another person's country. And it means that the 24-hour economy policy can suffer negatively. So we need to look at this thing very, very carefully and be able to see where we are stabilizing and then drawing the line, and then be able to hold the line quite strongly, because I believe that the dollar will still make some gains by Christmas time because of the huge influx of imports we do to meet up with the demand for Christmas shopping. But I don't foresee it going back to 16, maybe somewhere around 14, 50, 14 cedis, perhaps. That is my speculative guess, my educated guess. And then, of course, if the spare parts do go down, this on the lighter side, if you do have money, please, all the spare parts, buy two. Have a spare of the spare parts, just in case. Thank you, Koku, for this time out there.
Thank you very much, Reverend Anaya Bafuboni is an architect. And of course, Reverend Xavier Damoji is a clinical engineer. We're grateful that both of you can join us. Wish you all the best. Please enjoy your week and be safe out there as well. We'll be looking forward to seeing you later in the week. God bless you.
Sure.
Right. All right. And that has been it for the news review segment. How about we get ourselves prepared now? It's now time to do some discussions on mental health. Have you had any challenges at work where you are worried that your bosses are taking you through shege? Shege means you are seeing life. There's always someone who is out there taunting you, and there are a lot of things that are affecting you. You are not happy at work. You want to leave and all of that. Let's talk about how we can make the place safer, more conducive to be able to increase productivity on our coverage on the mental health series. Of course, later on as well, we'll commemorate the World Telecommunications Day that, of course, was celebrated over the weekend. You want to stay with us? We'll be right back.
It's good to be with you. Thank you for tuning in. I have with me some of the latest release of my books that I believe will impact your life. The snare of indifference simply has to do with lukewarmness, how the enemy has succeeded to cast spells on the church, to desensitize God's people, to cause us to slumber, spiritual slumber. These are not the days to slumber. These are days to be awake and alive and to be on our watch and our guard like never before. Please get this book. It will bless you, to impact your life. It will break the snare and the spell. It will lift the veil of you, and it will illuminate the eyes of your understanding and help you to avoid lukewarmness. Because being lukewarm, it's very dangerous. You are not hot and you are not cold. That's what simply it means by being lukewarm. You are not in and you are not out. It's very dangerous. There is no middle ground anywhere. You are in or out. This book, The Snare of Indifference, Lukewarmness, it shows you the signs of lukewarmness and how to overcome it. Get this book, it will impact your life. And as you do so, God bless you.
Hooray! Dominion TV is now also a digital terrestrial free-to-air channel. This means you can watch us in Ghana from your digital TV without any subscription. Just rescan your channels on your digital TV to access it. How? On your digital TV, press the menu or settings button and choose auto-tuning, auto-search, or the appropriate options to scan your channels and look for Dominion TV. Enjoy some of Africa's best Christian lifestyle programming from Dominion TV.
Hi, friend. Where are we going today?
Just use your imagination.
Go, go!
My family is the only thing that matters to me right now.
This is the stuff that only you would want.
These guys are the best. GOtv's ready to take you from your hometown to roaring stadiums and even on international adventures. So let's go together, from home or on the go with GOtv Stream.
Sounds like a great idea.
Woohoo! GOtv. Love it.
Barca's season is up and running. Save! Spain are the champions of the world!
Sport Sports Break on Dominion TV.
Poverty makes you do what you otherwise would not do. Wealth makes you live the way you wish to live. But revenge cancels the lines between poverty and riches.
It's either you're saying something progressive, or I'll just tell your wife that I'm carrying your child.
Where is my father?
Now that he's coming closer to the community,
My puppy go forget your own plans. So I go figure my own.
Decree today that the power of God that is coming upon your life, no enemy will touch you and go free.
Experience the power. Take dominion.
Say the name of Jesus. I prophesy. Doors of favor.
Action Chapel's Dominion Hour. Now, live, this and every Thursday on Dominion TV.
And from today, you will be stronger than any enemy.
Let's go deeper tonight. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh, cruiser, Yami, oh, shake it, pa. Oh, Mooni, Sheshabia, Nyam Sabwakwa, oh, Sachrada, yeah. You are, yeah, da. Oh, yeah, Nyansa, Buakwa, oh, dear, oh, Sachrada, yeah. You are, yeah, da. Everybody raise your voice, oh, cross on your mule. Oh, cross on your mule. Oh, Mooni, Shishabio. The God who knows all things. You change it all, oh Lord. Yeah, you are, yeah, God. Oh, cross on your oh, cross on your did you jump she's
Welcome back. Thank you very much for your time. We're grateful that you can join us and stay with us as well. Let's talk about mental health right now. For those of you who just joined us, it's not new. It's a month to, if you like, talk about the issues of mental health and, of course, lupus as well. But we're doing mental health. We're having on it. Today we're looking at issues around the workplace, the work environment, the corporate world. It's become hell for some people. People don't want to go to the office because there are quite a number of issues on the corridors. By the time you appear, it's a ghostbusters kind of thingy. And so we want to get into that, help you see how you can navigate some of these complexities. And also employers, if they are watching, tell them to tune in. Employees, if you are watching, just tell them, oh, can we watch Dominion TV so that we can also shape them and creep them into line. But of course, Mr. John Api has joined us. He's in the studios and he's going to be helping us largely. Ms. Mami Ekoagezi is also joining us via Zoom if she's on. Good morning to both of you, and thank you. There she is. Thank you very much for your time. Absolutely. Righty. And of course to you as well. Thank you.
I'm happy to be
yes.
Such an important topic.
Yes.
I hope my boss is not watching.
Right. I don't know where you want to take it from. I've not engaged a lot of people so far. One of the things that I've done in my life is to make sure that once a place is getting toxic, because I know the exit and the entry, I walk out. People have said that it's not okay, but I cannot stay and die. I cannot come and die. And so I don't know. I don't have the heart to deal with some of these things because the workplace is supposed to be very, very accommodating and conducive for me to ensure that my talent comes to the fore. And so I try to leave. I know it's a bad thing. You are going to advise on that. But paint a picture of how, especially here in Ghana, what have you heard people say about the working environment? And paint a picture for me.
A lot. But let me just start from where you ended.
Right.
You know, you are able to move because you have built your capacity.
Absolutely.
You have built your network.
Grace, yes.
And therefore you are able to move easily. But not everybody has it that way.
Right.
You know, in this time, it's difficult to get a job. and for bread and butter issues, sometimes you may have to hold on a bit until it gets to the very extreme. Now, I remember I resigned from a job some time ago and I felt like, me know that. Charlie, I almost died of hunger. You know, because I was like, I can't date, it's too toxic, I'm going to stay home. I almost died out of hunger. You know, but the point is that it's a very serious issue. I'm happy we're discussing it. You know, and most of us who are working, we spend most of our time at work.
That's true.
You leave the house very early, you come back very late. So if for the majority of your time you spend at work, and there's a very toxic environment at work, it is going to affect you mentally, of course, and then physically as well. And then it's going to even hamper your ability to rise up the ladder because there are so many issues that sort of, gets into your way. It's a very grim situation, unfortunately. And a lot of people dread, especially Mondays.
Yeah.
Because Mondays, you don't know who is coming to work with what baggage or excess baggage the person is bringing to work and all that. So it's a very worrying situation. And if you don't know how to navigate your way around it, you'll get yourself into trouble. But I always tell people that you are at work essentially to make money for yourself, bread and butter issues. Those are driving things that you need to have at the back of your mind. And number two, you are at work because you have a certain skill that you bring to the table.
Right.
Sometimes the toxic environment can overshadow that thought. And you begin to even question yourself, am I even competent? You know, because sometimes your bosses can make you feel so useless. The choice of words, the descriptions they use, it can cause you to even doubt the skill you have. But I tell people that once you've qualified through the interview and you have been given the job, you have your appointment letter, always remember that you are competent, you are capable, that is why you are there. And then the last thing I'll say before we go into the deep discussion is that the workplace is not your home. A lot of people have that assumption that, I have to be friends with everybody at work. We need to smile and eat together and all. Look, it's serious business. So you need to change your mindset the moment you enter into the office. You are there to accomplish goals. You are there to help the organization get to a particular level. You are not there to make friends and besties and all those things. Because if you have that perception, you may be very disappointed because people are looking out for their own good. People are looking out for their selfish gains.
That's right.
So if you go there thinking that, we're all working together, let me hold forth for this person and all that at your own expense, at the end of the day, you have yourself to be blamed.
I see. And that's why I don't smile to people like Biadela. I mean, you are not my sister, you're not my friend. We're just here to work and go home. That's it. You know, I'm a very serious human being. But that's it. Belated happy birthday. Let's go to Mami or via Zoom. Is it even a topic for discussion in the boardroom on how to create support systems to be able to tackle some of these mental health issues? Do they come up in board meetings? Are they things that are discussed? Because I'm not sure. Mami, talk to me.
Thank you very much for having, and good morning to you, John and Biadela. I really miss being in the studio. But guys, we are more than late at talking about this. And if you're asking if this is a conversation that's happening in the boardrooms, yes.
Ooh.
And if the organization is not having these conversations about workplace toxicity, the kind of culture or the environment that employees are delivering the business in, then they are not in this year. They must be in 1991, 92. Why is that? For the work I do, and it's good that you bring in the board, we go to the board and negotiate and tell them that the workplace culture has a direct impact on your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the kind of environment you have at work that people leave their homes to come to work in will determine your level of profitability. When we say that, people think, so the conversation about workplace culture and whether it's toxic or productive can look like a fluffy HR thing until we show you quantitatively and scientifically how it is eroding your return on investment and return on invested capital, which for me is the conversation boardroom people like to have. So yes, they're having it. And they're having it because at a certain level, you said that you can walk in and out. When people have honed in their skills and they trust that they've got the talent and the abilities to contribute to the bottom line of an organization, now they're not just looking at how much money they're bringing or the organization is giving to them, how many calls they're able to buy from that, but they're looking at how the environment, what is the kind of culture, what kind of values exist here. So yeah, very senior people say, oh no, I turned it down. No, it's not just about the money. It's not always about the money. And so people at that level are beginning to choose organizations based on the work culture. I've had offers. And when I did my checks with people I know are in the space, they told me categorically, Mommy, you cannot survive here. And it's not because I'm not adaptable. It's not because I don't have the power of stay. It's not because I lack resilience. It is simply because my values are so clear that people know that when I go into some workplaces, and I've been a product of a toxic work environment before, and because I'm certified in this work, I'm so passionate about it. Like I want to sleep, wake up, eat, walk. That's why when I got the invitation, I was like, oh yeah, you know how my time is. But this is a serious boardroom bottom line conversation. So for me, as John focuses on the individuals, the employees that are going to work and what they should be, I am more interested in, as an employer, as a business owner, as a leader that is managing a team, how do you create an environment that creates the same mindset for people to come, like he said, deliver business and leave and go home? So yes, it is happening at the board, in the boardrooms. The conversations are happening, and it is because it is a bottom line conversation.
Interesting, very interesting. It's I don't know. I've not been to a lot of places, but showing.
I know, right?
So I'll come back to me on that.
So according to 2025 Gallup report,
right?
Okay,
well, that's recent.
Yeah.
That's recent. Ghana actually happens to be, Ghanaians actually are like the third most stressed workers.
What have they been doing?
Third most stressed workers. And let me just read. It says that several African countries experience high levels of work-related stress.
Right.
Liberia and Sierra Leone were identified as facing the highest stress levels. Followed by Ghana, then Rwanda, Madagascar. The CEO World Magazine's 2025 Global Emotions Report revealed that 63% of Ghanaian workers experience excessive work-related stress, with many reporting anxiety attacks and sleep deprivation. Right? So this is the kind of people we produce. These are not the people we've employed. These are the people that we as organizations have churned out back into them. So we pick people from the universities, they're excited, they want to work, then they come in. First question they ask you, okay, are you able to do this job? It's quite stressful, but I mean, you've got a job. You can't just go back home, right? So you're ready to do it, but you go all the way. And then you have burnout, you lose yourself in the process. For some people, or they have to change their mindset, their whole being, because of the kinds of job that they do. But these are the people that a Ghanaian company typically produces, right? So how can we, change certain things, such that practical ways, so that we are able to solve these problems?
So I think that from my experience, what I've noticed is that sometimes, even in the recruitment processes, sometimes there may be errors that are made. So people are placed in certain roles that they are not supposed to be placed in, right? Especially if you just look at competence without considering the soft skills part, you may get it wrong. The person may be able to deliver, but the person may not be able to have that mindset and to be able to do the work and do it very well. So I know that most of the time, especially in Ghana, a lot of people that are employed may be doing things that they are not cut out for. And unfortunately, too, the organizations don't give the requisite training and capacity building to get them to that level. So already you are starting at a deficit. And that's where the stress starts coming up, because it's not something that you do normally or typically, but because you need the job. So you may not necessarily be a customer service oriented person, but because that's the vacancy available, you apply, you are smart, you're intelligent, your grades and certificates shows that you can do it. But the moment you get into that role and you are engaging with people and that is not your thing, then that's where the problem starts coming in, right? So I think that right from the recruitment, we need to have a conversation around some of these things, because people are hungry and people will do anything to get a job. But the key question is that, are you putting them in the right places? Because if you don't get them to fit into that right place, it becomes a problem. Waking up and coming to work is a problem. When they realize that it's Sunday getting into Monday, they are weeping and they are crying, but they have to gather themselves and come. Because already, even in the context of work, they are not properly positioned to be able to do the work. And that's how come a lot of people are undergoing a lot of stress. The other thing too, I believe that accounts for this is that sometimes the targets that are set for people is just abnormal, for the lack of a better expression. Let me put it that way, right? And I have a problem when you set big targets and you don't give the requisite tools to allow people to work.
Right.
You want me to bring in $1 million. I don't have a problem with that. But give me the requisite tools to allow me to do that. If I have to use my own money to go for meetings, I have to use my own money to do other things that I'm not supposed to do. I don't even have a laptop to work. I don't have the equipment to do the work. I don't have credit on my phone and all those things. At the end of the day, you are aggravating the stress levels for me. Meanwhile, you are waiting at the end of the month to value what I've brought in based on the target you set for me. So sometimes employers will have to equip their people very well with the requisite skills and also the tools they need to be able to allow people to work. Because if you don't do that, there's a disconnect. The targets are high, but I don't have the wherewithal to be able to deliver. The other thing I'll talk about too is that sometimes the manager-employee relationship is problematic. So if you don't even know what you're expected to do in the organization at the end of the day, it's a problem. Your boss is not communicating with you. You are there and an email comes out of the blue, no context, no opportunity to ask questions, obey before complain and all those things. It is just
that still exists?
I'm telling you. Because the email has come, John, I need you to be at this meeting to do this and that. No room for two-way discussions. The email has come, it's just well noted. And a friend of mine always says that corporate world is full of well noted. Thank you very much, well noted. Well, at the end of the day, it's not just well noted. You discuss, oh boss, I have another meeting at 2, so it's going to crash. But how will you even gather the confidence to tell your boss that, oh boss, I've already scheduled another meeting? Because the stress level coming from the top is just unbearable. So these are some of the factors that, in my opinion, contribute to people feeling very stressed. Sometimes a simple exercise as remapping and also looking at the HR people you have, or having a look at an audit, like an HR audit of who is doing what and how the person is doing. You can sometimes rearrange things and things becomes better for everybody, So we need to have a look at that. Employers have a role to play, managers have a role to play, and we as employees also have a big role to play.
That's really big. Well, I would like to hear Mami's thoughts on that. Sometimes people get to, accept certain jobs like we've established because there's no other job. But some of the jobs would be toxic, aside the fact that the environment is not helping. The job itself is not good for your health. You must agree that not everyone is at their utmost health level, but you need the job, right? And then you are competent, you're smart. Probably your body would not be able to wake up the time that Coco and I would wake up and show up here, but you're a good presenter, you can host a show, right? How do you find these things? Or you deal with these things on management levels?
So I would like to take us back to the Gallup report that you shared. And I like for every stakeholder in the conversation to take 100% responsibility for their role and the part they play in this. First and foremost, when you look at the countries, I don't know, but I've worked in Sierra Leone, I've traveled to Liberia around work as well before. When you look at the countries in question and you consider Ghana and why we're here, is because there is more than what the employer can do in the context of how stressful work is in these economies. Right. There's a big part of infrastructure. There's a big part of socio-political wherewithal of the leaders. I will go back to policy. We have beautiful labor laws. And I dare say that sometimes HR people have to run to the labor law because it's actually the minimum. So when you're talking about, John was talking about the person screaming about going to work on Monday. Guys, people travel 2.5 hours, 3 hours one way to the office.
Yeah.
I don't know how sane this individual would be on arrival at the office and how ready and productive they can be by that time. And it does not matter that the person has a car, because it's even worse. If you weren't driving and you were sitting in a church, or you could sleep, you could do other things, but you're driving, you need your wits to be about you and all. The person is not going to have to stay behind in the office, not because they love the job, not because they have work to do, not because they're willing to be in that environment, but because the environment or the broader space requires that they stay behind and are able to do 3 more hours. So the person is coming in, leaving home too early, leaving work too late, not because they are giving even 5 hours a day. And scientifically, for the 8 hours that we get paid for, when you have extremely productive individuals, they work maximum 3 hours in those 8 hours. And I'm telling you, even for the most productive environments. So there's a bigger conversation at that level. Why we come up at number 3? We've discussed it on our HR page, and a lot of things feed into it. Now, when you hone into the employer space and what we can practically do to make sure that people are giving up their best without feeling compromised, this is 2025. Look, people are getting called back. People are asked to do different things. But the conversation of hybrid work is not going to go away. I don't know what would happen to make that era leave. There are opportunities, there are tools, there are investments that are required for employers to put in, so employees don't have to come to the office space every day. We have a project, and I've told the team that everybody has to be coming to the office, but otherwise they know me. Just give me my results and go. Because look, the truth is that employees coming in is not just cost the employee, it is cost to you as well. But what we have seen over the years is even when employers have invested in workstations at home, giving internet, providing the tools for employees have made it a habit that on Tuesday at 9:30 a.m., when we have a team meeting, these employees are not available. You will call. The person is not just sleeping, or the person is not even at home to be able to rush to their workplace. The person is a mokola. So employers are getting to a place where they are feeling, I can't be paying you. And in Ghana, we don't work per hour. Everybody has a certain level of salary that is assured. A few sales and commercial people are working towards those. But we as employees also owe it to the business for the thriving of the business, because employers react, they learn. Sometimes the employees in that particular organization have done nothing, but employers are talking. So immediately they hear, oh, my friend did this and this was the outcome, and that the people were not churning the results. We've had instances where we've given VPN access to people. They're looking for numbers to go for a regional meeting or a team meeting. They're texting. The person is supposed to be online. The person is not there. They're calling the office number. They're not answering. They won't return calls. So everybody, so from the government, which is the bigger socio-political space, which is infrastructural, to the employer, willing to invest in an organization that is 2025 and beyond ready. To the employee, that has to be ready to be trusted with those allowances and privileges. Everybody has a role to play. So practically, just do what you've got to do from where you sit, and let's see if things will get better. Now, Coco, I know that you want to come in, but let me add quickly. When John spoke about when people come to work and sometimes they don't even have the attitudes and behaviorals that go with the technical competence, he's 100% right. Employers need to get to a place where assessments are not just for cognitive, because we are believing and beginning to realize that the IQ is only a subset of how people can thrive in workplaces. Things like SQ, which is your social intelligence, your EQ, emotional intelligence, and what I say, how to interwork. Only Saturday we're talking about this, how to interwork. Because you're working, you're sitting here, you're dealing with Asians, you're dealing with Americans, you're dealing with Arabs. And if you're not able to understand that, when a Japanese sends you an email, they're not looking for a long thing, but they're looking to how you've thought about it and what responses you're giving. You're going to get stressed. So people are walking into workplaces. Employers are unable to even assess whether this person has the attributes beyond the technical competence to deliver on the work. My last point will be on values. If employers invest in understanding the values, not just printing and posting it on the reception walls, but understand that values are a real deal in today's organizations, and assess incoming employees to know where their values are and whether these merge and whether these two parties are willing to go the long haul. It would deliver absolutely fantastic work environment, because truly the job itself, when you are able to, when you are willing to, can be tough. So imagine not having all these on. It's going to be it's just bad news. That's all I can say.
I'm here thinking, and that's so. I'm glad you clarified that particular one, because the number of hours we spend at work and the kind of productivity that we get at the end of the day, I couldn't have agreed with that report. But then the issue of staying at Abokobi and working at Central, Accra Central, is for me then the issue. So you are doing 3 hours in traffic, in probably and out as well. By the time you get there, you are stressed and all of that, and probably the money and the problems and all that could bring us, because there's a lot of waste as compared to if you have colleagues who are working outside the country and what they go through, the supervision. And so what Mami was talking about, that people are waiting for you at the meeting you at Makola. Elsewhere, other jurisdiction, you cannot have it all. You are supposed to on your camera, they see you. You are supposed to be there. You see, and you also give us your provisions, the things you want to talk about. But I want us to leave that part and go to reintegration and return to work. Look, I know places that, let's even talk about women and the stress of pregnancy. And coming back. Some of them go and they are afraid that by the time they are coming back, they might lose their job. And I've seen people lose their job by just going and coming, no fault, they never did anything, and they are gone, and they'll just use some excuses and all of that. Let's even look at women and all of that. And that's why I say, I'm not sure that the leaders are being trained to process some of these things. As much as someone like Mami will be invited, someone like you will be invited to teach them, I'm not sure their orientation is because I've heard a lot of stories, and talk to me about that, women especially.
So it's a very important issue you've raised up there, and let me look at it from this way. Right. Sometimes, like Mami rightly said, employers learn from experience. So you're going on maternity leave. You've been given a stipulated time, right? Some maybe through no fault of theirs, maybe medical reasons may have to stay longer.
Right.
But the others that deliberately decide to stay longer at the expense of the business, right? Now, when they come back into the business, some also sort of put up an attitude, today excuses, tomorrow excuses, all in the name of trying to get more time to spend with the baby, right? So employers sometimes who may have been hurt as a result of them giving that space for people to, as it were, recover and come back and do the work, will now learn lessons and begin to put in stringent measures to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again. I always tell people that people can abuse certain rights and privileges such that the person after them will not get those privileges again because somebody has deliberately abused those things, right? So about reintegrating into work, it's important. You are working with a schedule. You know that maybe from 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, you need that time to actually go give birth and then come back. So it's about planning. That's why I keep saying it's about planning. Because at the end of the day, if you don't plan for some of these things, it will create vacuums in the system.
And you are talking about the employee here.
The employee, and even for the employer as well. Because at the end of the day, what I believe employees don't like is for a vacuum to be created, nobody to fill that vacuum. And yes, still at the end of the month, people will have to be compensated for it. So I think that it's two-way. The employer will have to put in measures to ensure that the vacuum doesn't happen. And even the person going on maternity leave should plan such that, oh, I have trained this person, or I have passed on the information or knowledge to this person, or I have made provisions such that even in my absence, the work will continue, right? If those things are not taken into consideration, it becomes a problem. So, for example, I used to work in an organization where my wife delivered, right? But I didn't tell my boss about it. He was upset. Eventually found out that my wife has delivered because, like, John, you should have told me. At that time, I didn't understand what he meant by that. But, you know, now there are paternity leaves, or there are leaves for, you know. So sometimes the employer or manager or CEO will have to get some of these things to allow them to plan. So, for example, John, I know you work a very strict schedule, but now that your wife has delivered, I'm going to make it a bit flexible for all of us. You can come in at 8 and leave at 4. Or this or that. But where you are working at the blind side of your boss or the employer, then the problems will come. You begin to think the person is unreasonable, but they may not have enough information to base on that to make certain decisions, right? So we need to all take responsibility, because at the end of the day, I've worked in an environment where somebody has returned from maternity leave, and constantly by a particular time, the person is out of the place. Whether the work has been done or not done, the excuse is that, yes, my baby is at home, I have to go and take care of my baby. No wonder organizations now are creating that environment where you can even bring your baby to work, because they need you to be able to deliver on certain things. And they also need to create that environment that will allow you to also take good care of your baby whilst you are contributing to productivity at work. So we need to meet each other halfway to ensure that at the end of the day, the goals are achieved, the objectives are achieved, and then we can make some progress.
I know of a government bank that has refused to create anything remote, even when the workers know that this work can be done elsewhere. What I'm doing can be done elsewhere. They have refused just to create it, and they want you to come, wherever you are living at, and come to work and all of that. Mami, I don't know, the issue of reintegration, return to work, even for people who have gone through some stress and want to be given the opportunity to go and come, some of them stigma and all of that, and this women issue as well, pregnancy and all of that. You want to share your thoughts?
Yes, I definitely have a thought or two to share. You know, when we're talking about people management, the human capital, I'll tell you, is the most difficult. In fact, HR people should be the best paid.
I see.
Now, yes, because people are not static. People change. We are social beings. And the world of work is evolving so fast. So John is talking about the part of the employee. Now, I'm going to take the part of the employer. Everything he has said is true. And you will not believe how sometimes, I'm sorry, but my gender can be so irresponsible in that time. Sometimes they come off as though the employer owes them everything. No, it's a choice you've made. And some women have decided to go off the employment scale, to go and do this and come back. You don't have the ability to, you don't have the luxury, maybe the resources to be able to do that. So yeah, that's fine. Now, my question to employers watching us, or anybody in decision-making space or people management spaces, if you are mindful to prepare aging employees for retirement, how mindful are you to prepare your productive workforce for childbearing? I don't know. We assume that so long as I'm paying you, you've got to go and figure that out. Look, there are lots of young people, they don't have the support. Mom is already working. There are lots of Gen Z parents now, young people who are now parents, whose parents are still employed. So they don't have the luxury where grandma is fully available. 1, 2, they don't have the wherewithal to get a full-time nanny. They don't have the space to pay for the drop your child at 6 a.m. pick the child up at 8 p.m. They can't pay for it. So they will find ways around it if the employer pretends not to see the concerns. And that's why we all say that in Ghana, a lot of people pretend to work and the employees also pretend to pay. And that pretense is not helping anybody. It's only creating stress. Employers are stressed, employees are stressed. So my go-to will be, as I'm saying this, I'm advising myself because I have one sitting with me. Prepare, and I have conversations with her all the time. Prepare their minds, because not every organization or employer will be able to give more than the 3 months stipulated in the labor law. The big multinationals are doing it. It is cost to the business. How many even standing, strong organizations can do that? A lot cannot. So prepare them. Let them understand. Don't throw just the policy in their faces. And that's why I like to engage people. What's happening? How's it going? Sometimes it looks like you're getting into their personal beat. But well, if you don't open up, then the policy would work. So have conversations with them. How's the pregnancy going? Know when they're having complications. It shouldn't be at the end. Some employees will keep everything to their chest, and then the employer gets shocked to see a doctor's letter saying that the person requires 6 months of work. Paid by who? You understand? And people will tell you as an employer, he understands what I'm talking about. The rise of the pay cost on every employer's cost of doing business can be so scary, because it's the last thing you want to owe the people. I know some people have the guts, but I don't want to owe my employees. So we need to begin to get into the mind space of preparing our employees ready for maternity, so that we create this dual highway of sharing information and supporting, and prepare the team that the individual works in. If the person is a sole contributor, like a PA who works for an executive and it's going, we need to, like I say, 7th month. The truth is that if you're going for your antenatal, they'll tell you from week 36, anything can happen. So you already need to prepare. You don't wait till 2 days to pop in before you start trying to do your handing over notes. No, it won't work. So employers, let's prepare them. Let's prepare them. Even the farthest in the scene, employers must begin to prepare, because a wife could go through so much that the guy cannot have the peace of mind to come to work and deliver. So it's not just the women. And if you don't have a social supportive circle, and supportive is presence, money, knowing what to do, being there to do what to do, because some of these whole families are abroad, they are here alone with the husband who has no clue, so it's a whole lot. It's a lot. So the mix of the issues are that, like I started by saying, every party know what you need to do, commit to doing it, and be responsible for it. I'm just so passionate about this workplace thing, because it can make or unmake our productive world as a country. And that's our economy right there.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is there anything we've not touched on finally before we go? Anything on your mind?
Yes. I also think that as employees, we need to always find ways around it, especially when our employers seem not to be concerned. There are support systems we can build for ourselves that allows us to be more productive. So I will encourage a lot of employees who are facing a lot of difficulties. And sometimes because of bottom line issues, organizations may not be prepared to do certain things. But within the means of employees, they should be able to come together and look at how best they can look out for themselves. I think that's very important. And the issue of knowing when to work out is very important. There are some of the matters and issues you can actually overcome, you can actually handle right? And there are some of them that if it gets to the point where you are being mentally abused, verbally abused, even physically or sometimes sexually abused, you need to walk out of the place, no matter what the conditions are. So you need to be able to know some of these things. And then also about the reporting systems. If you are facing specific difficulties, you should be able to escalate matters. Sometimes employees don't know how to escalate issues. You can have a particular boss who may be the source of the toxic environment you are faced with, but there should be a mechanism that will allow you to be able to take it a bit higher. Because for all you know, your boss doesn't take some of these issues to the senior board or to the senior manager. So at the end of the day, you are just faced with a problem in your corner that even the organization as a whole doesn't even know about. So the mechanisms for reporting, if the issues you raise with your supervisor appears to do nothing about it, you should know who to escalate it to and then get to the very highest point to ensure that some of these matters are resolved. Other than that, you stay in your own corner and continue to suffer for things that you're not supposed to suffer. So I think that employees will have to be very proactive to be able to identify some of these gaps, and they should be willing to be able to escalate matters. Don't keep it to yourself and go and cry at home. There are procedures or processes you can go through to make some of these complaints and reports. And for all you know, even the C-suite executives, they don't even know this is what's happening in the organization, unfortunately, and you are bearing the brunt all by yourself. Sometimes just changing a single supervisor can change the entire environment for everybody in the organization. So we should all be productive and be willing to be able to hold responsibility. Other than that, we can blame ourselves at the end of the day.
Quick thoughts.
Yeah.
As part of the 24-hour economy and, of course, the issues of the Accelerated Development Export Authority, the issue of changing the labor laws to fit in, so the hourly thing, are you one of those who would want to?
We have to be, as a people, we need to be ready for that. Because like Mami rightly said, there are people that know that at the end of the day, this is how much I'm going to be paid.
Yes.
But if you are doing hourly rates, your productivity is on spot. It's monitored. And people will have to wake up to that. Because if you don't do that transitioning or preparation very well, people will mess up, I tell you.
I see. Interesting. Final thoughts, and by way also of the issue of the hourly thingy. Mami?
Yeah, I was going to bring that in. I want to say that culture is one of the things that employers have to begin to invest in. No, investing in that is actually investing in your bottom line. So first, culture is the one thing that, John, it does not come from employees. The leadership, everything happening in the organization is either actively or passively sponsored by leadership.
Right.
They can be actively involved or they can be looking away, allowing it. So employers at the C-suite, the boardroom people need to begin to invest in that. And that investment beyond the overall environment should go into training the people that manage people. So letting them understand. Some people are really, really helpless when it comes to these. And like John said, sometimes the employers have to have the courage to remove a human being because that can change a lot of things. And on the hourly rate thing, if we don't put in place the measures, the policy, and support for the businesses that will be doing the 24-hour work, it will be a whole chaotic environment we are not prepared for. So I'm all for it because I'm a big productivity champion, but we need to be prepared and not just make it a slogan. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Mami Kwagezi is with 565, and of course, people in Enabler. For those of you just tuned in, these are very wonderful people. Mr. John Appiah is President of African Chamber for Youth Development. You're going to be seeing them more often, especially in the month of June. Thank you very much, guys, and we wish you all the best. Make sure you take care of yourself. It has rained, so please drive carefully as well, Mr. John Appiah. Coming up is a conversation. How far? We're getting into June, so half of the year is gone already. Telecommunication, the hubs, and all of these other things. Let's talk about it and how it's connected to, again, productivity as far as our country is concerned. Of course, the bits and pieces of the things the hustling want to do. We'll gather some young people, of course, some very experienced hands as well, to be able to talk about it within the few minutes that we have. You want to stay?
It's good to be with you again. Thanks for tuning in. Enforcing the Prophetic is one of my latest books, part 2, that I believe will impact your life. I was talking to One of my spiritual daughters the other day, she called me and said that she reads her Bible every night before she goes to bed. And I said, that is good, but not enough. And she said, why? I said, reading or studying of the scriptures brings about understanding. But reading is not enough. After you have read and you have acquired understanding, you have to put into action the understanding you have acquired. And that is why enforcing prophetic decrees is very, very, very critical and important. The word of God is prophecy. The word of God is the decrees of God. And they don't work until we proclaim it. So enforcing God's decree is proclaiming and declaring with your mouth what you have read. And the Bible said, I watch over my word to perform it. Jeremiah 1:12. Just reading the word is not enough. You got to release it with your mouth and by your mouth. Faith is released by the mouth and not by your head, not by thinking or imagining. It's by your mouth you release. Joshua 1:8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mightest observe to do according to all that is written therein, for then shalt thou make thy way prosperous. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth. So anytime you open your mouth, you should be proclaiming, decreeing, and declaring what is written and what you have read. So get the book, enforcing the prophetic decrees of God. The word of God are prophetic decrees. And God is counting on you and I to declare it, to decree it. Say something in Jesus' name by getting this book to bless you.
Poverty makes you do what you otherwise would not do. Wealth makes you live the way you wish to live. But revenge cancels the lines between poverty and riches.
It's either you're saying something progressive, or I'll just tell your wife that I'm carrying your child.
Where is my father? Now that he's coming closer to the community,
My puppy go figure your own plans, so I go figure my own.
The season is up and running. Save! Spain are the champions of the world!
Sports Break on Dominion TV.
We go around just making statements that are not even biblical. God reveals to redeem. It's not in the Bible. God reveals so we can walk, so we can enforce the word of God and the scriptures over the enemy's intent. Any hope and expectation the enemy has concerning your family and your loved one, by the eternal blood of Jesus, we override that hope. We override that expectation. Put your hands together and override it.
The Voice of Inspiration, weekdays and Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. only on Dominion TV.
I wanted to make it a surprise.
Why?
I knew the dramatic appearance would excite everyone.
I've been looking for you for a very long time.
Why are you so intimidating?
But just complain that I'm fat.
But you are fat.
Here is my son.
Give me what I want and I will set you free.
Stop! Jesus has set me free. Yes, Lord.
thank you very much for joining us. We're grateful. I am super excited about this conversation, only that we don't have time to exhaust this. I mean, this got to be a lot of days in exhausting it, because once you talk about telecommunication, because it has come to be with us, look, some people have even compared it to the breath, because once you are off your phone, off network, your business could run down. You could run into a lot of debts because people live their lives. I'm talking about economic lives right here on devices, on gadgets, on these networks and all of that. And so it's a good time to want to talk about that. I pray that we're able to touch on some very sensitive one. We're doing this with regards to the issue of World Telecommunication Day, of course, over the weekend. The theme was connecting Africa, technology, opportunity, and responsibility on a digital age. And that's what I want us to focus on. And so we'll be drawing some lessons from there. A very, 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 very experienced man is in the studios as well to help us with others. Michael Bowman is Global Managing Partner, BA Consulting Group, LLC, joins us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to have you in the studios.
It's a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. Do we have Madam Juliet Eyamwa, is Country Director, Emerging Public Leaders of Ghana. She's also standing by via Zoom. Good morning, and thank you very much, ma'am, for your time. Good morning, Komla. All right. Friday. Very right. Thank you. Oh, right. There you are. You're looking good. Who else is there? Josiah? Is Josiah on? Josiah is on. Josiah Eason is Innovation Strategist, Certified in Leadership and Management Entrepreneur. Good morning, sir, and thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here, and greetings to everyone.
Absolutely. Do we have Asase Courage Komla joining us? Okay, and Sheriff Gali is also joining us, techpreneur, innovation and startups development expert, CEO of Ghana Chamber Youth Entrepreneurs. Good morning and thanks for your time as well. Alrighty. Okay, so we have 4 of you online now. Let's start off with the questioning. This is a big one and ranges from the issues of digital literacy initiatives to the issues of economic growth, i.e. job creation and all of that, access to quality education. I mean, when this thought comes to mind, where have we gotten to? Africa, Ghana, I know we've done a lot of work in this regard, but paint a good picture, or a bad one if you like, on how far we have come in bridging the ever, big and huge gap that's left.
Well, first of all, I think that we need to talk about things in the right context.
Absolutely.
We need to put things in context. If you look at the African context, we're doing very, very well. If you look at the global context, we're still ways behind.
Okay.
Within the African context, certain pockets of excellence exist. Ghana happens to be probably in the top 5, top 10.
Oh, really?
Yes, I would say that along with countries like obviously South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, and of course, I'm referring really to sub-Saharan Africa because the North African region has a little bit more advancement, but because of their ties to the more, to the Middle East and the wealth that comes with that in terms of opportunities. So they've actually, they don't, not that they don't count, but they're far. Yeah, they're ahead of us. They're ahead of us in terms of infrastructure.
Okay.
But I would say that they're behind us in terms of innovation.
Oh, is it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that we've done very, very well. If you look at organizations, innovations like M-Pesa leading the way that in electronic payments, that even the West, even America, even Europe was behind us. And Pedigree is another one in terms of what we managed to use those enabling technologies for, and so on and so forth. So we've done a lot. We and a lot of the startups in terms of the what we call unicorns now, come from sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya. being notable places where a lot of innovation is happening in this space, despite our infrastructure deficit.
Okay.
But one of the things that, I see he's done, and I wanted us to just discuss, was the theme that you mentioned about connecting Africa.
Absolutely.
We do a better job connecting with outside Africa than we do within Africa. And that's because we are still, should I say, dictated to by the colonial masters with a colonial architecture in terms of our infrastructure. It's the same way as we have in the aviation industry, for example, where you have to fly to Europe in order to be able to connect to certain parts of Africa. Whereas if you were to have direct connectivity in terms of routes and so on and so forth, we would. We have the same sort of mindset, same construct in terms of connectivity. So when you have incidents like global incidents, disruption incidents, like when you have a fiber cut, undersea fiber cut, like we had last year, where it disrupted business throughout the country and throughout the continent, costing us billions of dollars in lost, income and lost opportunities and so on, and disruption in our lives, everything from banking down to social media, down to just our local infrastructure for payments and so on and so forth. ATMs was down and everything else. It just highlights the problem.
I see.
So we need a mindset change in order to be able to make our infrastructure be more representative of a sovereign continent and sovereign countries or states within the continent.
I see. What a good way to start. And so it brings us back to the issue of connecting Africa, which of course is within the theme as well. So let me come to Josiah before I come to Mrs. Amoah. Josiah, are the young people who are doing fairly well in driving these innovation also that's socialized into what describes, so much so that we cannot continue to trade amongst ourselves, run these innovation ideas amongst ourselves, sell these things amongst ourselves? Or you think that policy comes in the way, no matter what we do, to want to work with someone in Kenya, to continually do so with South Africa and Nigeria, policy would always be a hindrance? Is that what it is?
So, yeah, thank you for that question. And I think a lot of these, when you look at it from an emotional point of view, yes, policy will always get in the way. But for me, we need to look at the business case, right? The average African really does not have the financial capital to be able to trade amongst us ourselves at that level. So what you find is when we create content, even if you look at entertainment, the ones that are usually going to pay for it would be the Europeans. They have a payment system that makes it easier, the copyright issues and all of these other things. So I think it's easier to look at the situation from that policy angle and say, okay, our colonial masters are getting in the way and X, Y, and Z. But when you bring it in a business case, yes, we have a huge population that is consuming data, but are they really paying for some of this content that is happening? No, they're not. They're either pirating it or exchanging it among themselves. And data being expensive, so then, if data is expensive, people have to justify why they have to then pay for your content. So I think if we really want to make good use of this technological advancement that we have, then it has to cut across the whole board, not just from policy, but how do we equip the younger generation with the right financial tools for them to subscribe to, channels. Iroko TV, for example, should have blown Netflix out of the water, particularly in Nigeria, but it isn't. Why? Because the average African does not have the credit card to then subscribe to these particular platforms. So then you will see that I will have a Netflix subscription, but 10 of my friends are using it. So if Iroko was subscribed to me, that means that 10 people are consuming content, but it's only one person paying for it. So from a business case, our youthful population really doesn't make a business case, and we have to be honest with ourselves and see how we can bring in the financial mechanisms that would enable a lot of these content creators and people creating amazing innovations to benefit from it, particularly from the continental point of view.
Interesting. Very interesting. Mrs. Amo, I don't know where you sit in this. What's your interest really, especially the issues of connecting Africa and bridging the ever, huge gap that we see? Is this something you want to look at from job creation or access to quality education?
Kwaku, thank you so much. And sorry for earlier on, I was calling you Komla. It tells you where my head is this morning.
Komla Dumore.
So, Kwaku, listen, I'd like to, and being just the only woman, I think, on your panel this morning, I'd be remiss not to talk about this from a female point of view. And so I'd like to think about it from your guest in the studio and earlier on what Josiah was saying about just connectivity, data, the affordability issues. Those are really the barriers to women's participation, if you like, in this whole digital space. So first of all, you're looking at how do you bridge the gaps for women? And earlier on, someone else was saying in the studio that we're doing, if you were comparing us to other African countries, Ghana's doing relatively well. But if you were comparing us to the global statistics, then we're not doing well. Well, in Ghana, I think internet usage is about 31% of the population. And of that population, the females are even less. And so immediately you're taking us out of connecting with information. You're taking us out of connecting with businesses, with financial links, funding, all of those sorts of things. So for me, I'm more curious about how do we educate women whilst we're advocating for infrastructure, advocating for affordability, advocating, and all of those are interconnected because the more infrastructure there is where the whole country, and I'm talking Ghana now, is connected, you don't have to go and stand on some tall tree somewhere to get internet connectivity, then the prices will probably also come down over time. So all of that, whilst we're advocating for that, our idea is to keep training, keep talking to, especially females, whether they're entrepreneurs or people such as my group, my core group of people who are young professionals looking to enter into the public service and work innovatively within the public service to reduce corruption and those sorts of things and for the public service to become more responsive. Then we're looking at those two key things, affordability and raising, or I was going to say raising hell until the telcos put in some more money or the government puts in some more money to build up the infrastructure. And so that's where we're looking at it from.
I see. Interesting. Sharif has joined us. Sharif, can you hear me? Are you on?
Yes, I can hear you. Can
Absolutely.
You hear me?
I can hear you. Good morning. And do I have to say congratulations? Let's see you being inaugurated on the board of the National Youth Authority.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Congratulations.
Well, so yes, you got. Thank you, bro. Thank you.
You're a big man. Anyways, let's talk about. I don't know whether work has started, but you have been doing a lot of work as far as local tech startups are concerned, even businesses that have something to do with technology. Addressing the urban-rural divide, I mean, the issue of even Ghana, let's just look at Ghana, where most of the businesses, yes, in the very urban spaces, but a lot more out there are also coming aboard. How do we bridge that gap, also while addressing what you have been doing, the local tech startups? What's the way forward? Have you guys discussed anything so far? What's going to be the direction?
All right, so thank you very much. Good morning to my good friend, Juliet and Courage. We met, that was on Friday, so let us page now. Every week, it seems we are going to the meeting. Desire has been a while. Right. And Kofi, thank you very much for the congratulations. It's true, the president asked that I should sit on the National Youth Authority board. representing the interests of independent youth organizations. So it's important I make mention of it so that Desire don't say I'm now a politician. Anyway, so once again, thank you very much. So when you talk about ensuring that, so first of all, joining my brother to say this honestly, if we look at the tech ecosystem, especially as far as Ghanaian local tech companies are involved, we are still at the stage where we do consumer-based innovation. So we pick existing products, tech products, and we are leveraging on it. And so you would tell Ghanaians that, okay, we have tech startups, but when we go into whatever they are doing, it's like, okay, picking one existing product and only being a distributor here in Ghana. And that has been one of the major key issues. But coming to talk about extending tech innovation across Ghana, you would realize that the hubs are playing a very key role there. And so for us this time around, wherever I sit, this is what I will say, that we need to ensure that we work collectively, that hubs across Ghana are able to extend their work, because these are the vehicles and the tools that we can be able to extend our work to, especially promoting tech startups across Ghana to everywhere in Ghana, so that we don't just make it look like tech startups are based in Kumasi, that of Accra, and a few in Takoradi. But I also want to share in the fact that Juliet mentioned something. If you want to really grow your tech ecosystem, government plays a role, private sector plays a role, and even the development partners and you media as well. I say this because she's saying that now Ghana is doing well because if you want to have access to internet, you don't have to climb trees like back in the northern part of Ghana, what we used to do. It's true, but still, there are three key things when it comes to making sure that you have an advanced tech ecosystem. Accessibility to internet is one, affordability of the internet, and the availability of it. So how accessible it is now, well, is virtually okay that you can access the internet almost everywhere in Ghana. Even accessing it, we have realized that I don't want to mention the service provider's name. For the past week, one service provider has been struggling. I don't know what the problem is. I'm sure all of us know. And so it makes tech businesses so a lot to go out there because you need internet to really sell out whatever you have on your server, so people can be able to access to your business 24/7. But now when you have issues where you said, okay, internet is available, but accessibility is not there. There are times you have issues. And now the last one, the affordability. You have tech startups that cannot even afford to pay for their own data. And that comes to talk about the cost that Josiah mentioned about, and Juliet also supported it. So these are the key things that are affecting our effort to take innovation and to take support to the various rural and urban areas to ensure that people are also able to innovate from wherever they are. And until this is looked at, and this cannot just be done by private sector alone, yes, the private sector will need to extend investment into making sure that the whole of Ghana have access to internet and is available and is affordable. But government need to put in policies. Imagine government is still charging telcos to pay over 30 million as spectrum. And you see, these companies are struggling to meet this requirement. How will they even invest in ensuring that they extend connectivity to other areas? So sometimes we need to prioritize our policies. Do we really want these businesses to invest to sending internet access across Ghana so that any young person in any village who has an innovative idea can be able to leverage or can be able to search the internet, have access to information, and come out with innovative businesses? But if that is not done, and we are only looking at ensuring that these tech companies become sort of, say, milking cows, then at the end of the day, they will focus on serving your interest, but not serving the interest of your own people. And that has been the bigger challenge. But like I want to support my sister's voice. We are doing well as a country, comparing us to other African countries. But for me, I don't even like the idea where we compare ourselves to others. Focus on building yourself. Focus on doing what you can do best. Yes, you can always be able to learn the good ones from the good things others are doing and leverage on that to benchmark yourself and be able to outperform. But in Africa, Ghana is doing well. And I would want to say a very big thank you to people like Josiah and the rest for holding up for years now, ensuring that innovation is not just centered in Accra and Kumasi, it's being sent everywhere in the corners of Ghana. We will need to come together, support effort like this, so that we can be able to extend and ensure that the innovation is not only sitting on the youth, the heads of the youth in Accra and Ashanti region. It's almost everywhere. Go to my hometown, young entrepreneurs are innovating, but they need to have the necessary tools that can be able to help them come out with this innovation.
I see. Courage has joined us as well. I'll come to you, Courage. And when I come to Courage, as I say, I want to ask you about, because we are getting into, I think June is just here. What have we done so far? Have you had any engagement with government? And what have you done about the issues of hubs, tech hubs around the country? And so I'll come to you. But let me just return to the studios. Mr. Iwa is still here with us. He's a very experienced... Mr. Amma, forgive me, is still here with us. And I want us to still talk about... Let's look at Ghana as a case study. What can we do? And can we do that in terms of infrastructure? Can we do that in isolation as far as the other countries are concerned and want to beef up to be able to maximize the gain? Or we have to do that specifically in mind, having the African continent in mind to be able to have our gains?
I think it's an excellent question. I think that it's important for us to build a solid foundation first, and you do it within. If you can communicate in Africa better than you can communicate within the borders of Ghana, then we still have the same problem. It's just a slightly different context. Right. Because again, right now, a big driver of cost, data cost, is the fact that infrastructure architecture is wrong.
Is wrong?
It's completely wrong.
Tell me.
Do you realize that data, if I want to send data from just Accra, if I want to send a file or I want to just access content that is sitting on a server in Accra, and I'm in Kumasi, I still have to use undersea fiber to go all the way to the international gateway, whether it's in the US or the UK or in Portugal, before coming back, depending on the undersea fiber my service provider is using.
That's how it is?
That's how it is. That's why it costs us so much. And as a result also, because of policy issues and potentially lack of expertise at the times when things were being built, being able to dictate from a regulatory perspective, most people don't host their data here. So we are having to host our data on servers that are sitting outside the country. A change in policy, for example, and enforcement by a regulatory body like the NCA would mean that local content should stay local.
How difficult is that?
It's not very difficult, but it's not being done. I've been advocating for this for more than 30 years. And it just seems to fall by the wayside in terms of, getting various governments. I'm not picking on any one political party or anything, but various governments across the board. Like I said, I've been saying this for more than 30 years, and it's not happened. But it's important that we understand the dynamics of how pricing works. If you have infrastructure that is heavily weighted towards our colonial former masters, and they dictate everything, and there's nothing local in terms of a local infrastructure, it's not architected properly, then we will continue to pay more for data.
Is that also the case with Nigeria, South Africa?
Oh, listen, all of them, including South Africa. South Africa to a lesser extent. South Africa have certain pockets of they have a local internet. We don't have a local Ghana internet. If you cut off that fiber, that is being used, whether it's Cisco, whether it's Sat3, whether it's the WASI. We've got different fibers. I think we have about 6 or 7 different fibers, undersea fiber cables that come in to serve Ghana. So you think that this is really excellent because we have a multitude of options, and therefore competition would drive prices down. But our basic infrastructure is wrong. So as I speak right now, I'm in the process of a multinational initiative, multi-Pan-African national initiative to change this narrative in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, and a number of other what we call the Mano River states, where we're trying to remedy that problem. And hopefully we'll then be able to roll it out further to Ivory Coast and then Ghana and so on and so forth. Because it was highlighted, I'd been saying it for, like I said, more than 30 years, but when it happened last year, people finally started realizing that we need
to own.
Yeah, we have our own infrastructure. We have like the Eastern Corridor Fiber that this government did way back in 2014, 2015, which was really great. But we have not leveraged it in terms of making it so that we communicate within our borders, on our own infrastructure without relying on having to go outside in order to come back inside.
Is it the cost, finally, before I go to Courage, is it the cost or the political will or commitment?
I think that there's a disconnect between people understanding it's not a cost issue. Actually, the business case is there, it's really there, but people haven't been able to connect the dots between making this decision and making these policy decisions and implementing it and seeing the benefits that accrue to them. The service providers have a lock. We have a monopoly, for example, right now. All the initiatives that we had with having 4G local 4G providers, for example, we've lost all of that because we didn't enforce our own rules, our own policies that we actually came up with. And so now we've destroyed that really, really good base that we were building. We used to have Surfline and, Busy and, Blue and so on and so forth.
They were local.
They were local. They were all local 4G providers. And the plan, it was a great policy that we were going to maintain that. Where are they now? They put out of business because someone decided, or some political entities decided that they were going to ignore the policy, which was a deliberate policy to help grow our infrastructure and grow our local content. But we gave a license to the dominant player.
I see.
Instead of letting that dominant player buy services wholesale from our local, service providers. And then
that's a gloomy picture, really. It's not as though I've not heard it before. I mean, we've discussed it elsewhere, but painting it again tells me about how far we feel we're making gains, and then, I mean, you hear things like this, you are taking aback, seriously surprised at this. But Courage, I don't know what you make of this. This is a bit too technical. Let's come back to you. We're getting into June. How far with your hubs? The hubs across the country, the government initiatives and discussions that you've had with them. Have you had any? Gale is here. He serves on the NYA board, and so we can speak to that with our full chairs, can't we? Courage.
Yes, of course. Good morning to you, and good morning to all listeners.
All right.
Before I even tackle the question about the hubs, I just want to say that the issue about internet affordability is largely a challenge because the government really does not play its role when it comes to supporting on the infrastructure component. And so the private sector is largely responsible for funding their own infrastructure, and the government that was supposed to be the arm to put in policies to be able to help combine both infrastructure, the policy component, and the cost component. They are looking at a lot of individual gains against the general good of the populace. And so certain policies, for example, we heard some few years ago that MTN has been declared like a market leader. And in terms of breaking that particular monopoly, that came as an additional cost to the consumer. And you would want to understand, if you are declaring a policy that MTN has become a big market leader and you want to break that particular monopoly, how should then that come as a cost to the consumer? So some of these things are some of the very weird policies that are going on. And when you look at what's happening in terms of innovation and what we want to do, thinking that the government would actually put in a lot of very careful thoughts into policy regulation and legislation, they've gone in to disappoint the innovation sector. Now, back to the conversation around what we've been able to do as innovation hubs. I think, let me just say that the hubs as we operate, we are more or less like an advocacy group for our members. So I represent the Ghana Hubs Network, and we act as an advocacy group to support and add our voice to policies that would benefit our members. Entities like the NCA, the Ministry of Comms are the ones that are responsible for the policy formulation and then the policy implementation. And so when we put in our word, we are expecting that they would give us a listening ear, and in able to implement those policies, they would consider what we've been able to do over the years as hubs and how our role also plays a very significant role in an innovation ecosystem. I, however, don't think that there's been a lot of platforms that have been able to take what we've been saying and then implement it in the way that we want it to be. But let me not discount that and say that even as of last week, we were in a meeting with NEIP. That's where I met Sheriff, and that meeting is supposed to support hubs across the country in implementing one of the flagship programs of the government called the Ejumera. So there were a lot of things that we actually tabled on for them, and we're hoping that they'll be able to listen. Last month, again, we were at the office of the Ghana Digital Centers, where we had discussions towards how the hubs can also play a critical role in the implementation of the 1 million coders program. So we've been doing a lot of stakeholder engagement, trying to see how best our policies and then our advocacy can support our members. We are hoping that a lot of the things that we put on the table, the government agencies responsible for implementation will take our side, and then we can be able to support our member hubs so that they can be able to better implement some of this intervention. So I would say, in summary, there's been a lot that's going on in terms of advocating for a lot of things that we think are the best practices for the sector. We just hope that those who are in charge, who are quote-unquote the politicians, who understand the technical expertise that we offer, and then they'll go according to what we are trying to offer them. So that's what we've been able to do so far.
Absolutely. Sounds like a good plan. Sounds like a good future ahead of us. Ms. Amwa, the issue of digital literacy initiatives is where I want us to come. Look, I've been worried, and because we are hosting this on a church, or if you like, it's the Action Chapel International, of course, the Christian television. We're also looking at, there's been a thought I've had with some colleagues of mine where churches must be able to create or make available their chapels so that issues of digital literacy will come at least second after the word will come, so that we can have the big screens. Saturdays in the morning, we could have the kids walk in there, where there are a lot of Cisco goes into training and all of that. There are even local people here who can teach them and all of that. Because I don't know how many people can use the Word, even the Microsoft Word, Excel, and all of that. Meanwhile, the world is running on things like this. These are the basics. I don't know how that comes to you, and whether or not you feel some of these initiatives, and who must champion them, really. Mrs. Amwa?
Coco, can you hear me?
I can hear you. There you are.
Right. I was just saying that that's a very complex question. Now, because if you wanted to peel back the onions, it would start with education.
Indeed.
How educated is our populace? Because it feels as if the ones that are educated have gone ahead and found ways to train themselves, understand the digital landscape, understand how AI is evolving, all the metrics, they are in that and they're doing well.
Right.
The last part of the problem is, especially when I talk about females, as I did earlier on, it's just about how do you even train someone to understand how to type messages? And so people are holding sophisticated mobile phones, but as you know, they're not able to use even 5% of the phone's capacity. Even on WhatsApp, people prefer to send voice notes rather than text, and so on and so forth. So it's a complex thing. Yes, all those infrastructure about, you say we could go and have those captive audiences after church services, after a mosque or a community gathering, because it's a captive audience. You're saying that it would be useful to have some kind of digital literacy or training happening within those spaces. It could happen, but it will require not just once, twice. It requires a concerted effort, and it requires taking it from the very basics and teaching people basic reading, numeracy, and all the things that need to happen before you can get into the digital space and be able to utilize it and utilize it properly. So your question was also about, so whose role should it be? Actually, it should be both government and private sector working hand in hand, because the government by itself, we're tasking it, all of us on the panel today are tasking the government with things like infrastructure provision, with things like policy development. We can't also then foist the human beings and the citizens' awareness and tech savviness on them. So yes, we will be teaching that in the formal classrooms and so on and so forth, and hoping that that human resource that exits from the classroom is okay.
I see.
But the majority of people are already in circulation, and it will have to be us, private sector, and others who come together to influence digital literacy.
Absolutely. I mean, very, very succinctly put, and I'm excited about this. We're trying to put all of them back, but of course, if you just joined us, we are commemorating the World Telecommunication Day that happened over the weekend, and we are spending some time to do that. And our guests have been touching, but why do I find that our problems are very complex? Even though it's interwoven and interlinked, you take digital literacy and we are way somewhere else, the infrastructure somewhere else, the consumers are crying, data is expensive. Access to quality education within even that space, I don't know what to make of this.
Well, you're absolutely right, but it's not as complicated as it appears.
It's not?
It really isn't. I think it takes thought leadership to peel the onion back, as Mrs. Amwa mentioned. You have to have a strategy, and it starts with education.
Right.
The right form of education, digital literacy being a big key part of it, and should I say, deconstructing the whole myth that is the tech space.
Okay.
A lot of people are scared of the technology and intimidated by it, so they don't really delve into it because it has to be demystified. It looks like something that is so complex and so daunting. Once you educate people at an early age, before you talk about digital literacy, talk about literacy and the right sort of thing. The tech space, unfortunately, is still colonized. It's still in a foreign language.
Yeah.
It's all English, French. There's no local language. So the people who are not comfortable in these languages are not literate, let alone numerate, but are not gravitate towards recording voice notes instead of typing, because they're more comfortable doing videos and in local language and where they're more comfortable, and so on and so forth. It's not bad, but we have some form of discrimination even within ourselves, where you've got the elites who are literate and multilingual, or colonial mindset type of thing, where they look down on people who are doing stuff in local content, local language, where some of the stuff could be really good and could be encouraged, and could
but
also,
once it's in the language,
people will be like, don't post on the platform in any local language because X doesn't understand, or Y doesn't understand, or they feel like
substandard,
and so on and so forth. So we got to break those things down. Like I said, when you demystify the platform and you then teach people either in their local language, and you also have innovations that take advantage of that large proportion. I mean, right now in Africa, we only got 500 million of our 1.3 billion Africans that are on the internet.
Interesting.
500 million. So there's 800 million that
left. Untapped. I see. Josiah, final words on this. I hear you want to touch base on this. I don't know what you make of the seniors and what they have talked about digital literacy. Josiah?
Yeah, everything that was said was 100%. But again, and I like the end segue that Juliet made about not, leaving government to do everything, because I think sometimes we are disingenuous when we think government should do everything.
Right.
We have a lot of well-to-do, affluent individuals who rather spend money buying Bugattis and, all of these other great cars and Cybertrucks and all of these, and ironically would then go on Facebook to tell you how the youth need to work hard. Facebook was designed and developed externally in another country. So they had other people that invested in their startup for them to be able to create that particular platform. So if we really want to do well in our country, let's move away from government, and focus on those individuals that have money, that are benefiting from the little infrastructure the government has already made, and then question them why are you not investing in local innovation? Why are you not investing in startups for them to create those innovations that we're looking for, to be able to then, go outside and have individuals like myself do the digital literacy training programs? How many of these local companies are doing corporate social responsibility work in terms of sponsoring organizations like iSpace, all of these other great hubs that exist to say, okay, we are going to give you 50,000 Ghana cedis every month for you to train X amount of women to be digital literate. None of them are doing it. See, so again, we have to own our own fault. We can't always look at it and say government needs to do this. Government can build nice roads. Government can bring in nice policy when it comes to technology, infrastructure, and everything else. But if the private sector themselves are not investing in creating these innovations or the critical mass that is needed to absorb the content, the innovation, and everything else that comes with it, then we are going to forever have this kind of conversation. So I think it's easy to blame government and say that, okay, they're not doing what it is that they're supposed to do. But in reality is, what are we doing as the private sector? What are we asking ourselves to do? Corporate social responsibility is not being done by the banks, not being done by individuals. And even if they're doing corporate social responsibility, it's literally take a speaker, go stand outside somewhere in Kaswa, play some music, and then that's marketing and branding for you. And then that's done. And we have to have real conversations. So if we want to be part of this whole digital revolution, it starts with the individuals who have the money, the individuals who have the vision for us to be able to do that, not government. We're asking government to do way too much.
Too much, I see. Sharif, unfortunately, we're going to be calling your line almost every time now that the responsibility has been handed over to you. But final words before you go. In all of this, what's the direction like? If you can't hear you. Right, can't hear you now.
You can hear me now, right?
Yes, crystal clear.
Awesome. Thank you very much. When you put together a panel of big-headed men, what do you expect? We will say it as it is.
Yes.
So, like my friend said, yes, we are acting from government way too much. But in other sense, somebody will tell you we are not acting from government way too much, because the system is made in a way that government concern itself in doing business. And for that reason, if the policies are not making doing business favorable, if somebody goes to hustle and get their money, you can't come and force them to put their money in supporting others. I remember some few years ago when the spy built children home in 37 military hospitals. So I was actually interviewed, and it came across on one of these media, and I mentioned that, well, even though I'm not too enthused about private sector people building, as part of their corporate social responsibility, building
hospitals, because it is government work. That's why we pay the taxes and all of that. Government should do that. And so I think that people like Magdan, I used to share Josiah's point. I'm just giving a feedback. I think that people like Despite should rather be focusing on building more despite investing in youth. So if we, like the Asians are doing, if we have 10 to 20 people like Despite, you can imagine the jobs that will be created. So I share in what Josiah is saying, but my mentor called me after the interview and was like, Sharif, you don't tell somebody what to use their money for. It's not your duty, it's not your responsibility. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. So I had to even go back, So yes, we're asking of government, we're asking for more from government, but I think that Josiah, in the other end, government need to also set up and do more, because the places you are talking about where people who make money are investing in startups like the Silicon Valley and the US that we can learn from. They have systems and structures that are making sure things work.
Right.
You have been in the ecosystem for years doing all your best to create startup. Here we are. We're still talking about why the government is not even directly support. If not because of donor partners, what would have happened to most of the things we do. Because government don't see the need and they don't really appreciate what we are doing. So we would be mindful of actions too much from government, but I would still tell the private sector that even though we should be mindful, government still needs to do their work to ensure that there are favorable policies to ensure that government also co-invest, especially when it comes to digital literacy that we are talking about. If you want to train 1 million coders across Ghana, I was actually at the launch. What should you do? You should be speaking to people like Josiah and the rest who have the experience, who have done it before. But I was at the launch. I didn't see Josiah. I didn't see anybody from the Ghana Hub Network. And I asked questions. Why? So there are a lot we talk about. We will I sit on the board, but like I said, I represent the interests of independent young people, and we'll make sure that whatever we can bring to the table to bring government minds to reflect on what we should actually do, we will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharif. Courage, final words. Courage, can you hear me?
Yes. Am I audible now?
Yes, of course. You're audible.
I think I share in Josiah's point that there comes a time where certain individuals that have the wherewithal in terms of resources should be able to democratize access to some of these resources so that a lot of young people can be able to train in digital skills. That is the only way that you are able to impact knowledge and then get others to start other things on their own. I mean, the era of government playing the sole role of being the person to formulate policy, implement the policy, and also do the sole investment, we have come to acknowledge that it is not working. It has not worked over the 50 years, 60 years of the country's existence. It's not working. And so individuals that are well placed in terms of resources should be able to take some of the sectors and then invest. I wouldn't suggest that individuals should only focus on building state institutions like the police offices, like the hospitals. Those ones are a bit more direct towards infrastructure. But the systems that enable infrastructure to stand, which are more of the digital, would be the most appropriate way for individuals to channel their investment. Because in that way, the multiplier effect in terms of the number of people you can have to go through such a system for digital is much more than just building a police station in some rural community. So I am of the view that, yes, government cannot do it all. Individuals that are wealthy should be able to take certain part of our economy, and most importantly, the digital sector, and invest. That way, we can have much more multiplier effect than what we currently see in Ghana. I mean, in other developed countries like the US, the UK, you have a lot of endowment funds by rich people. And some of these endowment funds are what some of our African brothers are enjoying right now in terms of scholarships that we all move to US and UK for. So how are we not able to get it in Ghana? How can't we have one of the rich guys set up an endowment fund for, say, a 1 million Ghana cedi, a research fund, University of Ghana, K University? Why is it always about building police stations and fire service and all the traditional ways of investment? I mean, you see that the balance sheet of Harvard University, and you realize that over 60% of what their inflows are from old students who are making it bigger in private sector and are giving back their resources to university to aid other people to gain knowledge. In Africa, it is not like that. It's about buying new cyber trucks and buying new vintage cars so that you can put it in shiny buildings for people to know that you are the new guy on the block. So there's a lot we can do and change our minds, and that way we can have a more more grassroots effect in terms of the impact we create for the country. Thank you.
See, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Do share our content. Probably, we might be gathering you at a conference. And for us, when we are gathering you, it's about action. And so we'll take action and make sure that we get results. And so just be on the alert for the call. Probably get some policy or some people as well, so we can start. There are a lot of policies we can champion. We're grateful. Courage, as I say, Courage Komla is a director of policy and research at Ghana Hubs Network and MD at Node 8. Josiah Ising is innovation strategist certified in leadership and management entrepreneurship. Sheriff Gali is techpreneur, innovation, startups development expert, CEO of Ghana Chamber Youth Entrepreneurs. Is also worthy to note that he's now on the board of the National Youth Authority. I would have to taunt him with that all the time. Then, of course, is Julian Amwa, Country Director, Emerging Public Leaders of Ghana. And, of course, Michael Bowman, Global Managing Partner, BA Consulting Group, LLC. Thank you very much for joining us. We're grateful that all of you can make a date. As I said, share the content. Let somebody see it so that we can prepare our minds even as we get into that big conversation sometime soon in the year to come. It's been a wonderful time talking about telecommunication, of course, commemorating the day. My name is Kokulumon. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you follow us on our socials to have a recap of all the conversations that we've had. It's important that you are part of this conversation so that we can build a future together. We're back to do it all over again tomorrow. My name is Kokulumon. I'll see you.